With your purchase of the BAFX Products carbon fiber hiking poles, you'll receive 2 hiking poles. Each hiking pole will come with a mud disc attached to the wrist strap of the pole. And you can just cut that the little plastic piece that holds it on off. It will also come with a rubber tip on the end of each pole, as well as a spare rubber tip for each pole. If you pull the rubber tip off, you will find a carbide tip underneath that's more suited for hiking over icy terrain or gravel paths, things like that, whereas your rubber tip is going to be more suited for things like asphalt paths, grassy areas, stuff like that. Alright, now we're going to go over how to unlock and expand your poles and lock them into place. These come with a very easy to use flip lock style of locking mechanism rather than the twist lock style of locking mechanism that our other hiking poles come with. So all you really need to do is flip that lock open, so it's like that. Extend your pole to the desired length and flip the lock closed. Now, when you get the poles, if you do that, you're likely going to find that your pole still collapses when you put some weight onto it. So what you need to do is flip that lock back open, go to the clear plastic nut on the other side, give it a turn or two, and there's one about 1.5, and flip that lock closed again. And now it won't slide back in when pressure is put in. To tighten that lock up, you turn it in clockwise direction. To loosen it up a little, if you can't flip it closed, turn it in the counterclockwise direction. Pretty easy. So just do that. Flip your lock open with each section, extend to the desired length, turn the nut, maybe one turn, and flip closed, and you're good to go. When you have the tightness properly adjusted, your flip lock should snap into place like that. If you find that when you tighten the nut you can't get enough pressure to snap it closed, or it feels like you're going to break it off or something and it won't close, just loosen that nut up by turning it in the counterclockwise direction a turn or two and snap it closed, and you're all set. Another very cool feature about these poles is that if you find that you can't tighten your clear lock enough to get the pole to not slip when you put pressure on it, or if you're not able to, if you have arthritis or something and you're not able to snap the lock closed properly once you have that nut tight enough, might be a little hard to see here, but inside that clear plastic nut is basically a hex screw. So what you can do is you can take a 6mm Allen wrench that normally looks something like this and has kind of an octagon pattern to it. You can extend the pole to your desired length and then use your 6mm Allen wrench to tighten that lock up. Just like that, and you're all set. Also, if you find that for some reason you cannot flip the lock open properly, you could also use your 6mm Allen wrench to loosen it as well. Works both ways. So another cool little nifty feature. You really shouldn't ever need to use this, but like I said, if you have arthritis or trouble with your hands, it may be another helpful easy way to tighten and loosen your poles rather than the flip lock. So you've actually have 2 ways to which you can lock and unlock your poles, both with the flip lock and by using the 6mm Allen wrench in the clear screw there. Now, before you actually lock your poles into place and go out on a hike, one thing we do need to cover that is extremely important is when you unlock your poles and extend them, you'll notice if you go too far that there is a stop marking here. You should never ever use your poles with the pole extended in such a manner that that stop marking is showing. If you do, the pole is likely going to snap when you try to use it. It's going to be very unstable, flexible, and when that stop marking is showing, it doesn't take a whole lot of weight to snap the pole. The reason for that is that the pole's stability really depends a lot on part of the lower section being inside of the upper section. So before you head out on your hike and go to use your poles, make sure that that stop marking is all the way up inside the upper section, and then lock your pole into place. Do not ever use your poles if that stop marking is showing. If you do, like I said, you might be going down a hill and the pole could snap on you if that stop marking is showing. So it's very important that that stop marking is always up inside the pole. That said, if you find that when you have the poles extended to their longest at 135, that the pole isn't tall enough for you, unfortunately in that case you would need to find a longer pole. For the vast majority of people, one of our fully extended poles is going to be plenty tall for most situations, unless you're a super tall person. So just like I said, make sure that you never use your poles with that stop marking showing. Another cool feature about these poles is that each section of pole has numbered markings on it. This is the lower section. If we go up to the upper section, you can also see it has markings, and you'll note that the markings for each section are the same. So they start at 110 and go all the way up to 135. What this is for is so that you can get a consistent height all the time. So I know that I personally like my poles set at 116 for most hikes. So all I need to do when I go to use my poles, open the lock, extend the lower shaft to the one mark above 115, so that'd be 116, lock it into place, go up to the middle section and set the pole at 116 as well, lock it, and now I know my pole is at my preferred height. So just set both sections to 116 and your pole will be set at 116 centimeters. A question we get asked a lot is, how far should I extend my pole? And that's a great question. Generally speaking, do what feels most comfortable to you and what you find works best for yourself. However, there are some good general rules of thumb that you can follow that should help out quite a bit. Generally speaking, if you're hiking over flat terrain, you're going to want to have the pole set at a height in such a manner that when your upper arm is parallel with your body, your elbow forms a 90-degree angle, about like that. So if you're hiking over flat terrain, that's generally speaking about the height you want it set at. If you're hiking downhill, you're going to want to have the pole set to a longer length, and I'm just going to set it really long here just to kind of exaggerate and give you a good visual. So going downhill, you want the pole set at a longer length so that when your upper arm is parallel with the side of your body, you form a smaller, more acute angle like this. And the reason for this is so that if you're headed down a steep hill, you can place the pole in front of you and brace yourself on the way down. And that can be very, very helpful. If you're heading uphill, you'll want to set the pole shorter than normal. And I'm just going to set it really short here, again, to kind of exaggerate the point. So that when your arm is at the side, your elbow forms a larger angle. And the reason for this is that if you're hiking up a steep hill, you can plant the pole up above you and pull yourself up the hill. Like I said, these are just good general rules of thumb that you can follow. Do whatever is most comfortable for you. The use of the wrist strap is optional, but there is a proper and improper way to use the strap. The proper way to use the strap is with the strap pulled out away from the pole like this. You insert your hand up through the bottom of the strap and then rotate your hand so that the strap's coming out of the pole or between your thumb and your forefinger, and then grasp the pole like that. So again, hand up through the bottom of the strap and then put the strap between your thumb and your pointer finger and grasp the pole. The reason for this is if you're heading downhill, a steep hill, and you lose the grip of your pole, that strap, I can still have my pole planted and that strap still keeps my hand on the handle of the pole. My hand's not going to slip down the pole. If you have your hand inserted from the top of the strap and are grabbing the pole like this and your hand slips, you could end up with a very injured hand. So really it's a matter of your personal preference, but the proper way is hand up through the bottom, grab the strap through your thumb and pointer finger, and then grab the pole. It's quite comfortable. The strap has some extra padding on the inside of it, so that's the best way to use the strap. We're going to now cover how to adjust the length of the strap. If you have small hands, you're going to need that wrist strap area smaller. If you have big hands or you're wearing gloves, you're going to need it bigger. The strap is adjustable. To make that loop smaller, all you need to do is pull out on this loose end of the strap, and you're going to see that loop get smaller. Once it's to the proper size, you'll notice, might be a little hard to see, there's a small black plastic square in there. Once you have it at the proper size, just press that in a little bit, and now your strap is going to be locked into place. You'll still be able to, with that pressed in, make the loop smaller, but you won't be able to, it won't get any bigger on you. If you find you have the strap too small and need to make that loop bigger, what you need to do is lift up the loop here, and then on the loose end pull directly up, and that's going to loosen the little black lock in there, and then pull out on the top part of the strap. Once it's at your desired length, press that little black square back in again, and now you're locked at the proper length. Piece of cake. As we talked about earlier, your hiking poles come with both a rubber tip on the end of the pole as well as a carbide tip underneath that rubber tip. A question we get asked a lot is, which tip should I be using? Which is a great question. Generally speaking, again, just like pole height, is do whatever you find is most comfortable for yourself. However, a good rule of thumb is if you're hiking over surfaces such as an asphalt trail or maybe a hard-packed mud dirt trail, you'll want to use the rubber tip on the end of the pole. And if you're hiking over a frozen lake, icy areas, or maybe a gravel trail, you're going to want to take that rubber tip off and use your carbide tip underneath. The reason for this is your carbide tip is going to allow you to dig into the ground better, and if you use that carbide tip on an asphalt trail, it's going to make a lot of noise, and it's probably going to be a little more prone to slipping. So for asphalt, flat surfaces like that, you'll probably want to use the rubber tip. For ice or surfaces that you need to dig into, such as if you're going up a steep hill or something, take that rubber tip off and use your carbide tip underneath. That said, the rubber tips, generally speaking, can last anywhere from just a couple miles to 10, 20, 25 miles, something like that. Your carbide tip is probably going to last longer than the pole itself. How long these rubber tips are going to last is all going to depend on many factors. You know, if you're hiking up very steep asphalt hills all the time with that rubber tip on, it's going to wear out probably in a few miles. If you're hiking over hard-packed dirt trails all the time that are flat, that rubber tip's probably going to last you a very long time. That said, we throw in a spare set of the rubber tips so you can kind of get used to figuring out how long they're going to last you depending on where you hike. We do also have spare tips available for sale in packs of 5, 10, and 25, both on our website and on Amazon.com, as well as other locations. If you need help finding those extra tips, drop us a line at info@BAFX Pro and we can help find those for you. Going back to that snow disc that we talked about at the beginning of the video, a lot of people want to know what that's for and when they should be using it. The mud disc is used to place on the pole to help prevent the pole from sinking too far into the ground if you're going through muddy areas or areas with soft ground coverings. If you're going through a muddy area and you don't have the mud disc in, that pole can sink really far down into the mud. So to help prevent that, it's not going to stop it completely, you can put the mud disc on your pole. To install the mud disc is pretty easy. Just pull your rubber tip off the end of the pole, and you'll note there's some threads on the bottom portion of the pole. To install the mud disc, you're going to want the convex portion of the snow disc facing the handle of the pole. So just slide that mud disc on and then turn the mud disc, screw the mud disc onto the pole until it's fully seated. Just like that. And then if you're going through a muddy area, you're probably not going to want your rubber tip on, but if you do, you can put the rubber tip back on then. You're probably not going to want the rubber tip on in a muddy area because that mud will suck the tip off. But now with your mud disc on and you're going through a muddy area, the pole is not going to sink into the mud nearly as quickly. A lot of people, a lot of times, just leave that mud disc on all the time, which is perfectly acceptable, especially if you're going through areas where you know, 1 second you're hiking through mud and another second you're on a hard gravel path. So, like I said, a lot of people just tend to leave those on all the time. It's really up to you. We do also sell a larger, I believe 3.5 inch snow disc that you can place on here, which is better for soft, if you're hiking through soft fluffy snow, something like that. That'll also help prevent it from sinking down into the snow too fast. Again, those are available on Amazon.com as well as our website. When you're setting up your poles, you might find that you accidentally pull your pole apart like that and think you broke it. You didn't break it. Not a problem at all. They're meant to come apart so that they can be cleaned if they ever get mud or dirt or anything in them, and you should probably actually take them apart every so often and give them a good cleaning. So if you pull your pole apart like that, all you need to do is reinsert the pole, close your lock. Pretty easy to do. If you happen to find that when you go to reinsert the pole like that, it doesn't want to reinsert, just make sure you loosen that nut up and that the lock is open, and it should slide back together very easily. So if you happen to pull your pole apart, don't fret, you haven't broken the pole. You can just slide it right back together.